Beep, beep, beep. Jackson thought the sound of the machines, following Mitchell's heartbeat, were going to drive him insane. They were slowly eroding his sanity as night faded into dawn over Las Vegas. Marnie and Millie were curled up on a love seat together, holding each other, and he wished that there was some way that they could just be anywhere else. Dr. Haywood, Marnie and Millie's mother, walked in. She checked Mitchell, looking over him carefully, reading the notes from the nurses, and gave Jackson a smile. "You know you all don't have to be here. We'll take good care of Mitchell." Jackson just nodded. He couldn't admit to her that he couldn't leave. There was no place he could go that would stop the fear that was consuming him. Last night at 11:30 p.m., Mitchell had stopped responding to text messages. Worried, Millie had insisted Jackson drive her and Marnie Ann over to the small apartment where the liberated teen lived. That's where they found him, passed out, so drunk he was already starting to tremor and have seizures from alcohol poisoning. It was Ramona's birthday. Mitchell's sister had taken care of him since their mother died when he was an infant. He didn't really remember his mother. And when Ramona went off to college and his stoic chauffeur father had found himself unable to raise the rambunctious child, doing everything he could to focus Mitchell's energy into anything other than causing trouble, he failed. So Mitchell moved to Las Vegas from New York and began high school, living with Ramona and quickly becoming friends with many of the street racing crew that ran around their high school. He was one of the best drivers and one of the youngest, since he had learned from his father, the personal driver for the Don of the Valtinia Mafia family. Only Mitchell knew his father was more than that. His father was the Don's personal assassin, and Mitchell wanted nothing to do with that life or those people. He thought he and Ramona were safe in Las Vegas. Yes, 2 of the Valtini lived here, but Giovanni and Donatello had their own lives. They were much older. Mitchell and Ramona tried to stay under the radar, but she had caught the elder Valtini grandson's eye. And one night, after winning the biggest race of his life, Mitchell had come home and found Ramona brutally murdered in their flat. And Giovanni had gone to prison. Jackson's father had seen to it. Jackson's friends, Millie and Marnie Ann, had rallied around him, supporting him in every way. But it wasn't enough as Mitchell's life spiraled out of control. After her mother left, Millie sat up, showing she was awake. Do you want a coffee? What am I going to do, Millie? What am I going to do if he dies before I tell him? Jackson's words choked in his throat. He couldn't stand the thought. But it was his greatest fear, and he needed to speak it. He had learned from Millie. Speak your fear. Recognize them. Overcome them. Jackson was at that place in his life where he had to choose. Choose who he was or who everyone expected him to be. He had struggled with what he was, with being gay. His father was gay, but he had married his mother, had a child, and spent his life working for the Las Vegas Police Department as a detective, hiding the truth of who he was, until 3 years ago when he was outed. The revelation had come at a great cost. His father's career was almost ruined. His parents had gotten divorced and his mother had moved to Hawaii. Jackson refused to go. His friends, his family, his life, everything was here, and he wouldn't leave. Then he met Mitchell, and he knew that fate had kept him here for the boy he loved. Jackson didn't hear Millie leave or come back. He only felt the warm coffee pressed into his hand. She smiled at him. You need to tell him. You need to tell him what we talked about the other night. Tell him you're not bi. Tell him you're gay. Tell him you love him. Jackson looked up from the creamy-colored liquid into the face of his best friend. Her sister was sitting up, looking at them. Their two-date fling had been the worst mistake of his life, and Marnie Ann and he both regretted it, but it proved without a doubt that he was his father's son, and Millie helped him understand that he should not be ashamed of it. Marnie took Millie's cup, gulped half of it, and grinned. If you don't tell him, I'll tell him. Jackson just groaned and rubbed his forehead. Please don't. He knows we dated. What is he going to think about me, about us, about... Marnie shook her head. Us was about you figuring out who you were. The first time, I'm sorry about the second time. I'm sorry I made you do it. I'm sorry I pushed you. I needed to know it wasn't me. Marnie scowled at herself, twirling her hair as she did when she was nervous, as she did when she was off her medications that made her feel as gray and bland as a wet blanket. She hated it. She hated not feeling alive, not feeling desired and beautiful and the life of every party. Marnie's party girl persona was who Marnie was, even though she loved them all. And she loved Jackson most of all. She knew she wasn't him. She wasn't the one to bring him away from what he was. Millie squeezed his shoulder. Mom wants us to meet her for breakfast in the cafeteria. I'll bring you back some pancakes. Then she and Marnie Ann walked out, hand in hand. Adopted sisters who were closer than twins. Jackson looked back at Mitchell's face, pale under his golden curls, and prayed that he would open his sapphire-colored eyes. Just open them. Just open them. Beep. 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 The monitors made him want to smash everything. He wanted to shake Mitchell awake. "You can't die," he begged in his heart. "I won't let you kill yourself. I won't let you be that statistic that has been repeated over and over in our school." Mitchell's hand moved, ever so slightly, and Jackson seized it. Mitch, come on, open your eyes. Open your eyes. Please, Mitch." He swallowed, stretching in the bed as the monitor began to speed up slightly. Without opening his eyes, Mitchell whispered, "Where?" "You're in the hospital. We found you last night. You almost did it that time." Mitchell turned on his side away from Jackson. "Why did you bring me here? Can't you see I don't want to live? Ramona's gone. Everything's gone. When they find out, when my dad knows what I am." "Don't talk like that," Jackson begged. Please don't talk like that." I love you, Mitchell. I love you, and only you." Mitchell rolled over suddenly and sat up, staring at the taller freshman. "But you and Marnie." "Marnie and I were just a thing. I didn't want to go through what my dad went through unless I was sure. And I love Marnie. She's a friend. I love Millie. She's a friend. But you, I love you. Please don't try to kill yourself again. Please don't." Mitch looked at his hands. Then Jackson reached over and placed his over Mitch's clenched fist. "I don't know how to stop," Mitch admitted. "I don't know how to make the pain stop. It only goes away when I'm drunk. I only forget how her blood felt on my hands when I can't feel anything." Jackson took a deep breath. "I talked to Dr. Haywood. Mr. Dr. Haywood. He says he can help you. But we need to get you in rehab. I promise. I'll come and see you every day. I will be there with you every step of the way. Just don't leave me." Then Jackson leaned forward very, very slowly and placed a kiss on Mitchell's lips. "Please, Mitchell. Please stay with me. Don't become a statistic." That is an excerpt from my Pagosa Cliffs series. That was when Jackson and Mitch first became a couple. They have a very difficult romance is a side plot in the entire Pagosa Cliffs series. Eventually, they both become fathers and raise their 2 children together. Statistics for attempted suicide for family members of murder victims were unavailable. I could not find those. However, I did find something on LGBTQ rates. The Suicide Prevention Resource Center estimate that between 5 and 10% of LGBTQ kids attempt or commit suicide. That is a 1.5 to 3 times higher rate than heterosexual children. Among gay and lesbian youth, 37% seriously consider suicide. 19% attempt suicide. Another side note to this is that addiction rates among LGBTQ youth is on average 190% higher than when compared to the general population. The reason that they are is because they are 40% more likely to be bullied, assaulted, excluded in school, or to be harmed in their own homes by their own family members. It's not a disease, it's not an illness, it's not something that can be cured by radicalized treatments. It is who they are. But the trauma of coming out as LGBTQA in our society means that many face ridicule, ostracism, and disbelief from friends, from families, from fellow students. And many have doubts. Do they want to tell? Do they want to admit to the world that they are who they are? We need to support these children. We need to show them that no matter what traumas they face, they are also worthy of love and compassion and care and everything that is given to everyone else without a thought. Thank you for listening to this Pride Month presentation. Be blessed and have a lovely day.